Hey BookTube, it's Tara, and I finally got a little bit of motivation to film. So I'm going to do my August wrap up that I should have did a couple weeks ago. So I got Goodreads pulled up to help me figure out what I read in August, what I felt about it, so I can relay that information. Here we go. I feel like I was scrolling forever there. Like, how many books did I read? I read 12 books in August and had no idea I read 12 books in August. I guess I wasn't keeping track. So, 12 books read. I read 6 3-star books, 3 4-star books, and 3 5-star books. I hope that math is correct because I was kind of counting while scrolling through Goodreads. So, I am going to go in order of what I read versus star order like I normally did in the past. So, first book I finished was a 5-star read called Between the World and Me, Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. This book was a letter written to his son about the trials and tribulations of being a black man in America. I wrote in my review that there are no words for how eloquent and fearlessly Coates explains the reality for black men and young boys, black parents and their children, navigating a land that limits our abilities, a land that keeps us broken and afraid. Again, I gave this 5 stars because of how eloquently he wrote this book. And if I remember, it was very poetic how he explained, again, the trials, tribulations that black men and black people will inevitably suffer if you live in the United States. The next book I finished was a book by Angela Johnson called The First Part Last. This is a book in a series and it's book number 2. It was very short. I gave this book 3 stars. This novel tells of a young man, 16 years old, who's navigating fatherhood. He becomes a father at a very young age. And it's told in a dual timeline perspective. What I appreciated about this book is that I got a young man's perspective on what it means to be a father and what that feels like for someone his age. The ending was a surprise to me. I did not see it coming. But it also brought light to why the book was written in the perspective that it was written in. Again, this is a very, very short book, so if you're looking for something to maybe boost your numbers for the month or something kind of short and sweet to listen to or read, this was an okay read. Again, 3 stars. The next book I finished was Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This was my first Octavia Butler read. I gave it 3 stars, and I know some of you may feel a way about that, you diehard Octavia Butler fans. I will say that she is excellent at world building, and I liked the feel for the book because it sort of borderlined on reality. So we're following a girl named Lauren. The year is 2025. We are in a dystopian society where there's a lot of disease and outbreak. The land is somewhat barren. The water is dirty and nasty. There's social unrest. Most of the communities are isolating themselves behind these barricades and these walls. Everyone's trying to stay safe from what's outside behind the wall, from the people on the other side. And we look at what happens when the people from the outside break into behind the wall, break into, I guess, this small knit community, and how Lauren ends up having to navigate from the home that she's known into the rest of the world since devastation has come to her and her family. It's told in a fashion where it's written almost like diary entries. So we are in her head. She is building this religion called Earth Seed, in which the premise of it is everything is change. Some topics that this book deals with would be coming of age, being black in America, feminism, theology, dystopianism, if that's a word, and just the journey that she takes. So it was okay. It was just okay. Next, I listened to a book called Solo by Kwame Alexander. And the key word here is listen, because within this book, you have elements of actual musical ensembles, actual original scores and songs that are being sung, that add life to this story, which made it all the more better. But this is a contemporary story about a young boy who, I don't know if I should say, I don't know if that'll ruin the story, but his name is Blade, and he is the son of a rock and roll mogul who is a drug addict and alcoholic. And Blade's mother passes away when Blade is a tad bit younger. And so all that Blade feels that he has left to live with in his existence is his music and his girlfriend Chapel. And we just kind of follow his storyline, how he navigates his relationship with his father, with his girlfriend, with his music. And the music is the key part and key element in this story. It, like I said, it brings it to life. And what I wrote in my review about this book is a quote from it that says, "Why do we need mirrors when we can see the reflection of goodness in the way people react to us? Look at the mirrors in your friend's eyes. That's all anyone ever needs, to see beauty and reflection in others. Those are real mirrors." It was a beautiful story. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next, The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I wanted to like this one better than I did. I was very hyped to read this book. It's a murder mystery set in Ireland. I gave it 3 stars. All I can say is that nothing is as it seems, of course, and everyone has a secret. But isn't that a common plot and a common theme with all mysteries? So throughout the book, I kept feeling like I'm waiting for something to happen, and all of this extra storyline is just prolonging the inevitable. Get to the point. I guess the book was just okay for me when I found out who did what and why. I can't say I was surprised. The next book I finished was a book called This Is My America by Kim Johnson. 5 out of 5 stars. This book follows Tracy, whose father is on death row, who was falsely accused. And she is fighting and writing this non-for-profit organization almost daily to help her exonerate her father. The other twist to this story is her brother ends up being accused of killing his white girlfriend. So now Tracy has to deal with her father being unjustly imprisoned, and now the police are looking for her brother, who has also been, unfairly prosecuted. Well, they're on the lookout for him. He hasn't been prosecuted yet. But the twist and the turns and is she gonna win, if you will. There wasn't a dull moment in this book at all. There were so many secrets that were uncovered and so many things that were unveiled with neighbors, with her friends, with what was going on in her school, and just it felt like nobody was who they really seemed. This was a phenomenal book. I don't know if this is Kim Johnson's first work. However, I would read any other book from her again. I did write in my review that the writing style in this book reminds me a lot of Tiffany D. Johnson. So if you are a fan of Tiffany D. Jackson, sorry. If you are a fan of Tiffany D. Jackson, then this would be a book for you. You would enjoy it. You would probably give it 5 stars. I loved it. The next book I finished was The Death of Vivek Oji by Akwaeke Emezi, and this is my first Akwaeke Emezi book. I gave it 3 stars. This is a murder mystery because Vivek is dead. Not a spoiler, it's in the title. And we're trying to figure out who killed him and why. I will say by the first third of this short book, I knew who was involved. I could tell. We don't hear much of Vivek's perspective within this story. We hear a lot of his mother. We hear some of his father. We hear a lot of his cousin and his friends. So we're getting everybody else's perspective and everybody else's timeline while Vivek was alive, and just these situations and things that happened during his lifetime and what might have led to his passing. But I would have liked to hear more about what was going on personally in Vivek's head. This book has great representation as far as diversity, as far as not just with race, because there are interracial couples in here. You have a lot of Indian women married to African men. You have gay, straight, lesbian, you know, the whole LGBTQIA plus representation here. So I think the author did a phenomenal job of portraying grief, especially with Kavita, who is Vivek's mother, and displaying what that felt like to lose a child. This was also part love story, and also a lot of it dealt with self-identity and becoming who you're really meant to be in life. So it was just okay for me. 3 stars. Next, I buddy read a book with Zoo's Book Corner called Lovely War by Julie Berry. And as far as love stories go, I gave this one 4 stars. In my review, I stated that 2 whirlwind love stories end up turning into 3 by the end of this book. You have Aphrodite, the goddess of love, Ares, the god of war, and Hephaestus, the god of, I want to say like fire and brimstone maybe? I don't remember. But Aphrodite is married to Hephaestus and having an affair with Ares, who is Hephaestus' brother. And so Heph puts Aphrodite and Ares on trial in order for Aphrodite to explain why love can't exist without war. And so in her storytelling, she tells the stories of these 2 couples that meet and fall in love during World War I, and how the trials of war in turn led to these couples falling head over heels in love with each other. I will say in this book that Julie Berry did an excellent job with the research she put into describing the times of World War I and the social climate, especially when it comes to Black soldiers or African American people during that time and their role within the war and how they were treated, and you know, so on and so forth. So I was not all that vested in the characters. I really didn't care. The love story was cute for what it was, and the storytelling was very good for what it was. So 4 stars. The next book I read was Not So Pure and Simple by Lamar, Giles. 5 stars. by far the funniest story I have read all year. I still giggle thinking about this book. So, it's a young adult novel. We're following a young African-American boy named Dale who is in love with a young girl named Kiera and has been since kindergarten. And, you know, he's forced to go to church, but he's not paying attention. And Kiera walks up to the front of the church and she's joining a purity pledge, but he doesn't know that. He just sees that she's up there, and so he goes up there too to join, and not realizing he's joining in a purity pledge as well, and just the antics that ensue from there. This book was hilarious, but it also focused on issues such as toxic masculinity, hidden agendas within the church, as well as society standards for young women. So it hit on some pretty good social issues as well when it comes to young women and how women are judged and assessed in society. So this book definitely gave my mind the break that it needed, and a bit of comic relief that I needed. Definitely check it out if you want to laugh. The next young adult novel I finished was a book called Full Disclosure, written by Camryn Garrett, and I gave it 3 stars. It follows a young girl named Simone who is bisexual and has HIV, and she is in love with a young man named Miles at her school. Someone finds out about her relationship with Miles and threatens to expose her HIV status to the rest of the school. So it's part mystery, part love story. It was just okay for me. I wasn't at all invested in the storyline, in the characters. I found it to be immature. However, I did learn more about the virus, HIV, than I already knew. So I felt educated on some level. And the author at the end in her author's notes does give other resources where you can do more research on the virus, learning more about how it's transmitted, how people cope, you know, what you can and can't do, things of that nature. So it was informative on that end, but 3 stars. Last book I'm going to talk about for my wrap up is Caste by Isabel Wilkerson. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I'm a fan of her writing. She writes in a way that definitely holds your attention and definitely gets you involved in what it is that she's telling, the story she's trying to tell, or the social issues that she's trying to convey. A quote from this book is, "Color is a fact, race is a social construct. Casteism is another form of racism." So this book basically shares the history of caste systems, not just in America, but also abroad in World War II Germany, and India, where the caste system is also practiced. It's very engaging, and she does give a lot of examples in her own life where casteism was used specifically against her in her professional career as a Black woman. She does also touch on occupational deprivation, servitude, biased treatment when it comes to health care and other privileges. Those of the dominant race should only be privy to. This book just held a lot of examples that goes into what it means to live in a caste system or a caste society, and how that kind of relates to our society today, and how racism bleeds into that same narrative. Again, her writing is very engaging, and I did thoroughly enjoy this book. So again, 4 out of 5 stars. And that will wrap up my August reads, the 12 books I read for August 2020. Thank you guys for watching. Next week, hopefully I'll be back on my Friday reads rants, and I will talk to you soon. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. Thank you for watching. Bye.